I'm here with Gina Yashere, true icon. You know, love. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Let me
I
finish.
said thank you. I'm
Yeah.
saying nothing else.
I thought you was about to do that. Well, I'm not quite sure about that and get into all of that.
No,
No, listen.
I'm not about to do that.
Good. Because we ain't playing it down today. We're giving out flowers while we can. You know, because you've been there, done it, worn the t-shirt, still wearing it, still going. The black don't crack. Like, look at the smile. You know what I mean? Like, I really appreciate you, and I want you to know that from the top of the interview. You've put out your memoir, Cack-Handed, Gina Yashere. That's what we're here to talk about today, man. Listen, how did you pack it all in, first and foremost? And where did you start with this whole process of writing such a book?
You know what? I didn't even get to pack it all in because originally the book was going to cover me right up to present day in America doing what I'm doing. But my childhood and all the experiences I had in England was so rich. I was like, you know what? I called my publisher halfway through the book and I was like, I've written 200 pages and I haven't even got to America yet. I haven't even got out of Otis, the engineering job yet. So here's the thing. The book is going to end on me going to America. We're going to have to leave space for a book too. So I had to call them and let them know that, because originally when I sold them the book, I told them I was going to write up to present day. The process, it all started from Instagram. Throwback Thursdays, hashtag Throwback Thursdays, where you post an old picture up. And I used to post old pictures and then tell the story behind the picture. And people would be like, oh my God, this is so interesting. We didn't know this about you. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. So I started saving those little posts and going, maybe one day I'll write a book. And this is how the universe works. At the same time, a lit agent called up my manager saying, would Gina be interested in writing a book? And then a black woman called Tracy Sherrod at HarperCollins called my manager and goes, would Gina be interested in writing a book? And it all just came together. And I was like, well, I'm writing a book then. And that's basically how it came about. And I got the book deal way before I got my TV show, but I was procrastinating like crazy. But then COVID hit and I was quarantined at home for 1.5 years. So I was like, well, no better time to write this book. So I wrote this book during quarantine.
So you actually use your quarantine productively, and that
sounds
good.
I was very productive during quarantine. I wrote a book and made a TV show. We still made the second season of our show during quarantine.
It's funny because I think the last time we spoke was just before the lockdown. I think there was a lot that was meant to happen. Obviously, the whole world changed. So it's glad to see you made the most of it. Listen, tell me a little bit about Grandma Patience.
Oh, my grandmother. Okay, so my grandmother, very strong woman. She was, married to my grandfather in Nigeria. She was the first of many wives that he had. And because she was the first wife, she had more power. And she suffered from hatred and jealousy from the other wives, her husband's other wives. She had a lot of children. I think she gave birth to like 11 children or something. And all her boys seemed to die under suspicious circumstances. Because obviously in the patriarchy that is Nigeria, boy children are much more revered than girl children, as is in most societies, even British society. In all the world, boys are just seen as more important. And Nigeria was no different. So she had lots of boys, they all died. So only her girl children survived. And my mother was one of those girl children. And she was convinced that the other wives were poisoning or doing juju to kill her boy children to reduce her power in the hierarchy of the family. When she was, my mum was young, my grandmother used to say to her, that used to tell stories and crack jokes. And she'd say, listen, when I come back, because we believe strongly in reincarnation, when I come back, I'm going to be British, because obviously Nigeria was a British colony. So England was the motherland for Nigerians, weirdly enough. But she was like, when I come back, I'm going to be British. I'm going to be speaking English. I'm not going to have all these kids again in my next life. No kids. I will not be beholden to any man in my next life. In fact, if I want to do a man's job, I will do a man's job. So these are, and all the kids used to laugh at her. But these are things that she used to say. Anyway, she ended up dying under suspicious circumstances. She thought that the belief is that the other wives poisoned her food, and when she died with a mark on her throat, either left by them trying to resuscitate her, trying to help her, or the poison. She had a mark on her throat when she died. So when I was born years later in England and I came out with this mark on my throat, my mother was like, oh, my daughter is really my mother returned to me. And so I'm a reincarnation of my grandmother. And all the things that she prophesied, all the things, I turned out to be all of those things. All of the things that she said she was going to be when she came back, that is exactly who I became. So my nickname in the family is Granny. My mom calls me Granny because I am basically my own grandmother, reincarnated. So that's her story. So she lives on through me.
And you touch on that in the book. You also kind of dwell on, the way you grew up, right? And I guess those two things are connected. They conflate, obviously. Why did you choose to dwell on and focus on some of the things that you did in the book? I don't know what we want to talk about now and not talk about, but any of the standout elements of your youth that you dig down into, what was the most pertinent?
Yeah, they just made all these experiences that I've gone through made me who I am. They built up my resilience. So being a kid in Bethnal Green in the 1970s when the National Front thought they were running things, where I constantly, as kids, we knew that if we went out in the streets, the chances are that we'd be chased or spat on by skinheads. This was just a thing that we went through as kids, black kids in the 70s, black and brown kids. We just knew that we may come across 6 skinheads and not to antagonize them, just to walk away. And yeah, I got spat on. I remember being spat on by a skinhead when I was like 6 or something. These are things that happened, and these are experiences that colored my childhood, and these are things that went all the way through my childhood, and not just struggling with racism in England from white people. As an African kid, white supremacy fed us preconceptions about each other as black people. So I went to school and I got it in the neck from Caribbean kids calling me names and calling me African bubble and stuff. So I got it from both ends. It was white people calling me, nigger and spitting on me in the street. And then I had people who were the same color as me calling me African bubble and teasing me at school because of my name and where I came from, because white supremacy had us fighting against each other, feeding African people images of what Caribbean people were like. So Africans all believed that Caribbean people were criminals and whatever, and then Caribbean people believing that African people were animals and just running around in the jungle naked, just eating white men, putting white men in pots. And these were the kind of beliefs that had us fighting against each other when we should have been in unity. So this is the kind of stuff I went through at school. And it helped build up my resilience. And then I left school and became an engineer, and then went through a baptism of fire as an engineer, working for Otis, building and fixing lifts. And I was the first female lift engineer that they'd ever had in their 100-year history at the time, which sounds a lot better than it looks. It sounds a lot better than it was. I was their poster girl. Oh yeah, Gina, on the front of all their little brochures. But I was surrounded by white racist men who didn't like the fact that this black girl came in as qualified as them, are being paid the same as them, and black to boot. So, I'd come into work and there were pictures of monkeys hung above my overalls or banana skins in my pockets. That's what I went through as an engineer. But I stuck that job out for 4 years because I was like, you know what, you ain't driving me out. You're not driving me out. I'm going to stick this job out and I'm going to prove that I can do this job. And you ain't going to drive me away. I'll leave when I'm ready to leave. So I stayed there for 4 long years. And then I left. And then I ended up in comedy. And I was like, well, this would be easier. It's comedy. Well, hey, it's all laughter and jokes. No, the racism, misogyny continued into my comedy career. But I realized early on in my comedy career that people were just intimidated by me. They had their own insecurities and they took those out on me. And once I realized that was the case, I was like, oh, in that case, I'm going to give you guys something to be insecure about. I'm going to be the best comedian I can possibly be. And you're going to hate me even more. And I'm going to enjoy that hatred. I'm going to sip on it like a fine wine. So once I had that epiphany quite early on in my career, pretty much nothing stopped me after that.
It's interesting listening to your lived experiences. And especially in light of what's gone on over the last couple of days. I don't know if you've been online and seen any of the abuse that some of our Black English footballers have been exposed to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been talking about it.
For some people, they don't really get why Black people are so sensitive, and listening to where you've come from is a reminder of where we do not want to go again. People spitting on you in the street, because you're Black, your lived experience in Bethnal Green. Thanks for sharing, because there's a lot of people that won't want to revisit those dark days having.
But we are revisiting those dark days. Those dark days never left. They just went underground for a little bit.
Do you think they're as extreme now as they were? And what?
Yeah.
Are we better off? Are we in a better position to fight back as Black people and make? What's different is what I'm asking.
We're more educated. We got the internet. We can communicate with each other all around the world. George Floyd, if this had happened in the 80s, you might not have heard about it, or you would have heard about it, but the way the Black people and people galvanized all around the world to make sure that justice was brought, it wouldn't have happened in the same way. When Rodney King was horribly beaten by those police officers in America, the world saw it, but justice still did not prevail. They didn't care. But now the world is more of a one place with the internet, and for good and for bad. For the fact that everybody was protesting all over the planet. These are the kind of changes that are happening now that we didn't have before, and I think that's how. But then again, the racists are also galvanizing all over the world and meeting each other on these horrible websites to discuss their superiority, their perceived superiority. So it works both ways, but I think we're definitely in a better place, and I think we're more educated now. You haven't got as much of that whole, you're African, you're Caribbean, you're African American, you're Haitian. There's still a little bit of that, but I think we're learning to rise above that, and we're being educated a lot more and realizing a lot of our antiquated ideas come from white supremacy, So I think that's a good thing. We're still in them dark days. Don't get it twisted. Nothing has changed in England. It just went underground for a while. They just went a bit quieter with it. But with the advent of Bojo and Trump and all these and Pritchett Patel playing Stephen from Django Unchained, these racists are now empowered to publicly speak their bullshit. So we got to fight that. But it never went away. It never went away. It's always been there. It's just now fashionable for them to be out with it.
Why Cack-Handed? Back to the book.
Why Cack-Handed? Because I'm left-handed.
Oh, so you don't? No, but there was a because we ran the story a month or so ago that your new book was coming, and that's why we're for those who are just joining this interview, I've skipped a bit. That's why we're here. We're talking about the new book, Cack-Handed, a memoir from Gina Yashere. Yes. And there was a bit of a discussion that ensued in the comments.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Between.
Oh, well, you have to send me the link to that.
Do you know what? I will, because I'm sure if that person's watching now, they'll be like, see, I was right. Because it was like, she must have posted, I'm assuming it was a she, they posted, it was, I'm left-handed too. Yeah. And somebody said, what do you mean? Cack-handed doesn't mean left-handed. And it goes, where I'm from up north, and I'm assuming they're from up north, that's what it means, and that's what we called each other. And I thought, it's interesting. I wonder why. So that's why I asked the question. So
that it means a few things. Cack-handed means left-handed, which I am. Also means awkward and clumsy, which left-handed people are perceived to be. I don't believe we are extra awkward or clumsy. I just feel that we're living in a world that's right-handed. If I'm next to you at the pub and I'm talking and I'm waving my dominant hand, which is my left hand, I'm going to knock over your drink because you put your drink on your dominant side, which is your right side. And that's how the whole world is. And so we are perceived to be awkward and clumsy. So that's part of the reason why I called it that. The fact that my life and career has been awkward and clumsy, in that I've never gone a straight line from A to be, because we weren't allowed to do straight lines as Black people. We had to circumvent obstacles. We had to jump over hoops, through hoops, dig under hoops, go round hoops. So that's why I call the book Cack-Handed. One, because left-handed, and two, because that it kind of is a metaphor for how my life and career has progressed. I've had to circumvent so many obstacles in my life to get to where I am. So that's why it's called that. And cack is another word for doo-doo. So because in most cultures, especially African culture, the left hand is the hand that's supposed to be used to wipe your ass when you go doo-doo. Hence, cack-handed. And in African culture, that was very much believed. And my mum tried to force me to be right-handed for a very long time as a kid. If she walked into the kitchen and I was cooking food with my left hand, all that food went in a bin. I got slapped around the head and we had to start cooking from scratch. You go and touch somebody with your left hand in Nigeria, they're looking at you, you've insulted them. And it's the same in Indian culture, Middle Eastern culture. Even in the Bible, the left, if you look at the Bible, everything right is good, everything left is bad. You know, Jesus sits on the right-hand side of God, righteous. You know, everything right is good.
Cack-handed, yeah. Anyway, so many different things that apply to you, and you're right, I guess. It hasn't gone conventionally. Engineer, stand-up comedian, now an author. What's next?
What's next? I'm going to continue. Well, I've got my TV show in America called Bob Hart Sabishola, which is a sitcom about a white sock salesman who falls in love with his Nigerian nurse after he has a heart attack and ends up in hospital for an operation. And it's the coming together, the cultures basically. So I'm basically bringing authentic Nigerian culture to primetime American television. I co-created the show with Chuck Lorre, who is behind The Big Bang Theory, 2.5 Men, Kaminsky Method, Young Sheldon, Mike and Molly. Like, he is the king of sitcoms in America right now. So to be working with him on a show, and we've just started writing season 3, massive blessing. And I'm enjoying that part of my career. Now, I've been on the road as a comedian for 26 years. And so I'm enjoying just being at home, working on a TV show. I'm a co-executive producer. I'm a writer on the show. I'm also an actor on the show. So I'm getting all the checks.
I'm just gonna say,
getting all those checks.
Have you secured the bag? Because the last conversation we had wasn't on video, it was on audio. But have you secured the bag? I'm
securing the bag, my friend. Trust. I'm putting money aside for my pension. I'm putting enough money that I could have. Basically, as a comedian, you never really get to save for your pensions. I bought properties all around the world, so I've got a few houses and things. But the pension, never had the pension set up because, you know, your career goes like this. You earn money, then you're not earning money. You earn money. But this TV show, I'm saving I'm basically from this TV show, I'm going to save enough money that I could have saved over the last 30 years. I'm saving the same money.
Oh, you secured the bag.
I'm securing the bag because look, I'm glad I've made it late in life, because if I'd made it in my 20s, I'd be broke, because I went for all that, the 20s. I needed the Mercedes. I want the gold and the jewelry and the diamonds and the sneakers and the gadgets. I'm still about all that stuff. But now I portion it out properly. You know, I'll go, right, I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to save this. I'm going to buy a house with this. And then this is my pocket money I can spend on and enjoy life, because I like to enjoy life. Money is for spending. I'm not about to stashing all your money and then dying with all this money in the bank and you ain't done that with your life. I'm all about enjoying my life. I will travel the world. I'll buy nice things, but I'm not going to spend all my money on nice things. I'm also saving for my future and making sure I invest. I'm investing. I got stocks and shares. I got houses. I'm investing. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not, and I don't live above my means. That's the most important thing. You know, you wonder why all these footballers and basketball players end up broke. One, because they've come from nothing and suddenly they're just awash with money and they've not been taught how to manage money. That's one thing. Then they get all these shark financial advisors around them who just rip them off. And two, they forget, as an athlete, the money that you make in your career as an athlete, maybe 7 to 10 to 15 years, is going to have to last you for the rest of your life. You don't realize that when you're in your 20s. You think, oh, look at all this money I'm making. I'm going to be making this money forever. But as an athlete, that doesn't happen. You could have your career ended by a broken leg after 5 years. And that money that you've made has got to last you for the, you know, you've got to invest it well and make sure it lasts you. Because not everybody goes into, you know, on TV shows doing the talky stuff. Not all of the athletes do that. So I'm glad I've made it later in life, because I'm much better with money than I was. Because I went through stages where I was blowing money. I was gambling in the casinos, blowing thousands of dollars at the roulette table, thousands of pounds. I remember going to Vegas once and losing my kitchen. I just bought a house and I went to Vegas for my friend's wedding and lost 15 grand in 2 days. Just basically lost the kitchen. That was the money that was set aside for the kitchen. I lost my kitchen in Vegas. But even in the depths of my gambling addiction, mortgage was always paid first. Health stuff was always paid first. Bills were always paid first. And then everything else went. So I was never one of those gamblers that lost the house because I always made sure the mortgage was paid, number one. And then I gambled everything else. But I'm better now.
It's good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. What made you better?
I just getting older, getting wiser, struggling. I came to another country and started my career again from scratch. So I had to become better with money because, you know, I was in America earning no money and then having to live off my savings and live off the little, every time I get back on a plane to come to England to make money, I'd call it the bank raid. I'd come back to England, do the bank raid, do as many shows as I could, get that money and have to bring it back to America and live off that money until I could start making money in America. So I had to learn to be better with money. And as I got older, you just become more aware of things and you just become smarter about stuff. And yeah, I just became more money literate and so it's a good thing. And yeah, I'm older now, you know. If you don't learn, then you're never gonna learn, you know.
Well, you are a lot smarter. You managed to get 2 books out of the 1 book deal negotiation. So that was brilliant. More.
Only if this book sells though. This book has got to sell. Otherwise there will be no book 2.
Yeah, but we want to know the rest of the story. So there has to be, you know. HarperCollins are not silly. They know better than that. Yeah. Gina, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Really has, as always, man. As always, like I said at the beginning, always have to give you your flowers. You've been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah, there'd be no Judy Love or no Mo Gilligan without me. I opened them doors. And I was the one shouting at the establishment saying, you ain't giving black people enough opportunities. And now they've opened the door a little bit. And now Mo Gilligan can earn the money he's earning now because I was shouting at the BBC and shouting from the rooftops when they weren't listening back then, but now they're listening. And this is why the Judy Loves and the Mo Gilligans can get what they get now, because I was out there opening doors and busting them open for them. Unfortunately, I didn't get through that door myself. I had to go to America and bust my way through a different door. But I opened them doors.
I've had to do that. No, you're right. You definitely played your part in blazing a trail, along with a few others I could mention. But Gina, thank you. I know you've got a few more to do in a busy day, securing that bag.
That book.
Yeah, we'll do, man. I mean, I've got my copy, but for all those watching, appreciate you. All right, speak soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Take care.
All right.